everyone, I hope you're well. So today I wanted to make a special video in honour of Jace. So Jace was our Cavalier. He died in January of this year. We had to sadly put him to sleep due to his condition. He had heart failure caused, well, he had a heart murmur to begin with, and it was just the typical Cavalier, sadly, which is very common in their breed. Heart failure. It's absolutely devastating to have experienced. The fact that we had to put him down was horrendous. And I just wanted to talk a bit about our experience with it, what medication he took, what difference it made, if any, and yeah, and just in memory of Jace. So Jace was and is, he'll always be and is to me the best dog you could ever imagine. He had such heart and soul. He was an adventurer. He loved going on walks. He loved playing. He's so active, even up until he got sick. He was very active. He loved playing fetch. He was so smart. You could literally, we used to, in our old house, we had our homeschool upstairs, and he'd be down, homeschool room upstairs, and he'd be downstairs. He'd come up, and I'd say to him, "Go get Snake," or "Go get Bull," and he'd literally trot all the way downstairs, get whatever it was, and come straight back up again. To play. He absolutely adored Bubbles. It's one of his favourite thing ever, and it's just not the same without him, and it never will be. We do have his children, so we are so blessed that we have 4 of his puppies. We had an accidental breeding. He managed to get through 2 doors, closed doors, which he'd never even attempted to open in his past before, to get to Quinn when she was in season. She hadn't been spayed because of the arrangements at that time. If you know, you know. I'm not going to say it because I don't want anything to happen to this video, but they weren't doing spaying surgeries at the time, and she had a season. And he managed to. Well, we got 4 beautiful puppies out at the end of it, so we kept them all. So we do have his 4 children, but it's just, life is not the same without him. He's just such a huge part of our family. So what happened with him? He was 7. He'd always gone for his annual vaccinations, flea and wormer monthly. Well, it was quarterly because he had Bravecto, and everything was always fine. He was the most healthiest of all of them, really. He never had any issues at all until he was 7, and he went for his annual vaccination, and the vet said he's got a heart murmur, stage 2. And I was so shocked by this because he'd always, as I said, always been very active, very healthy, and no one had ever in the past mentioned anything about heart murmurs at all. And he'd always been checked, so I just assumed it must have just happened at that point. And when he was 7. Now, Quinn, when she was 3, was diagnosed with a heart murmur, but that's our female, and she was always stable. It never changed. It never progressed from a 3. So although they said, you know, it was a 2, in my head I was thinking, well, Quinn, you know, that's terrifying, but Quinn has always been fine, and I wrongly assumed that Jace would follow the same path. So as far as I know, there are different types of heart murmurs and how they manifest and the severity and what can actually happen. So with Quinn's, hers is very stable. She's not required any medication so far. I think that might probably change, but for right now, she's stable. Whereas his was a rapidly progressing heart murmur, which is obviously very different than hers. We were not prepared for this, so we moved. He went to have his vaccination in February. My baby's down here, and in the July, after we moved house, we went to a register with our new vet, and they said he was stage 5 heart murmur, and we were just absolutely flabbergasted. He had nothing had changed between the January and the July in terms of his symptoms that what we could see, but they said he was a grade 5. So when we went to a different vet because we needed a second opinion on something that was different, and at the time when we went, they said actually he's not a 5, he's a 6, and you need to start medication immediately. So I think that was the September. So we started medication then, and I've got all his medication here. So he was on Cardisure, he was on Cardalis, and he was on furosemide. The vet said that they thought it wouldn't work. They thought it was too severe, and if anything it would just be days to weeks. So we tried to do as much as possible. So I took him to all his favourite places. They'd love to go to the beach and everything else to make some, you know, special memories with him, and we just hoped for the best. So to our surprise, we were able to repeat the prescription twice. So we repeated the prescription, and then he went back after that in December, late November, December time, because they would only repeat the prescription twice before you had to go back and see the vet. At that appointment, they said that, again, he was terrible and they didn't think he was going to last much longer. And by that point, we were on the same page, because I'd seen a massive deterioration. So he was so stoic, and to the end, he tried so hard to carry on and do everything that he always did. And that's the heartbreaking part of it, because his mind was so willing. It was his body that was letting him down. So and we had tried to make the best of Christmas with him. We did all these fun things. He had his advent calendar, which he loves. And come January, he was just getting so slow in terms of being able to move. He was having problems lying down, so he'd want to sit up because he couldn't breathe properly. But it got to the point where we woke up one morning and he had hardly slept all night because he couldn't get comfortable. He couldn't lie down. But the thing that was the worst was every time he drank anything, he would throw up, and that was terrifying. So we took him to the vet, and they said that you know, there was two options. We could try and increase his medication, or you know, the other. So our actual vet, because this was an emergency vet, our actual vet had refused to increase the medication back in November, December time. They said he was already on the max. So I told them that's what they said. And at this point, he was suffering. It was just too much for me to see him like that, because quality of life was the most paramount thing. And I wanted to keep him so much, but I just knew that wasn't a life. So we made the terrible decision to euthanize him. One of the hardest things I've ever done, to be honest. Never want to do that again. But with Quinn, you know, it's Cavaliers for you. The best dogs ever, but the most heartbreaking ones too. So I'm just hoping, of all hopes, that whoever watches this video, you can learn from my mistakes. And the biggest mistake we ever made was not starting him on medication when he was a 2. They never gave us that option because he was only a 2, but I think had I have known at that point this was what was going to happen, and it was going to be so fast, who knows whether it would have made any difference, but it might have done. And I'll always have that in the back of my mind. With Quinn, she's stable. Hers is different than his, but I think at some point she will have to go on the medication as well. I just don't think vets are trained as much as they should be in dealing with heart conditions. That's why they always want you to see a cardiologist, but it's so expensive. And you know, vets, the whole thing about vets, they need to changing the medication and everything else, in terms of they have the monopoly, and they don't want like you buying it off from online or something like that, giving you a prescription. It was very difficult for me to be able to get that in the first place. I had to switch vets before I could get a vet that would actually let me buy my own medication with a prescription, and even they then changed the rules shortly after that. But the medication is so expensive for the heart conditions, and it was half buying it from an online chemist, than it was buying it from the vet. So there's so many things that need to change. But if my heart goes out to you if you found my video because your dog is suffering like this, all I can say is earlier the better for intervention. Try and see a cardiologist if that's something you can do. If not, start the medication, because without the medication we wouldn't have had any time at all with him. We got at least another 6 months out of it. We could have potentially had longer. I was heavily pregnant at the time when we had to put him down, and it was just absolutely heartbreaking because I so wanted him to see the baby. But he's with us in spirit, I'm sure he is, watching down. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, and like I say, if you are going through this, I'm so sorry. I really truly hope that they can find some way to fix this problem. As I said, I didn't say, but he didn't start until he was 7, so it's not like, oh well, this is something that you knew before you had puppies. It could be a factor. He was perfectly healthy, and that's also the other thing that we've got in the back of our minds. Our other 4 dogs going to have it too. They have no symptoms or anything, but obviously it's genetic, so there's that chance, which just makes it even worse. We might potentially have to go through this 5 more times, but we just have to hope for the best. And they are such a beautiful breed. I just wish there was a different way I wish there was a way that they could eradicate this condition, but it's just one of those things. There's so many conditions that we wish there about, isn't there? We just have to cherish the time we get with them. Well, thanks so much for watching, and take care.